years, through the decades, one of our longest running series on the Dave Nemo Show has been and continues to be ATRI on the air, the American Transportation Research Institute. This morning, for the first time, we're going to introduce a new series. Rebecca Brewster joins us for a few minutes every Monday morning to kind of give us a heads up at the beginning of the week in terms of what just happened. Did it really happen? What can we do about it? Or what's coming up in the world of ATRI? And this morning, Rebecca is going to join us and talk about something that we've never really talked about before in the program. And maybe you don't even realize that it exists. But you know about the top industry issues every year. They're out now, and we've been talking about them, of course. They've been doing this for a long time. And we've been talking about it for a long time, but they also break it down for the states. So this morning, we're going to take a look at 2 state reports and see how they compare to one another and how they compare to the overall national reports. And the states are New Jersey and Virginia. And Rebecca, I've used up all of your time introducing you, so I'm going to let you take over here for a moment. Good morning and welcome to December. How did we get here so fast?
I know this year has just flown by. So good morning, Dave. And we are really excited. The ATRI team and I are really excited to be joining you on Nemo Nation. And you're right. I think everyone knows about the Top Industry Issues Survey. We've been doing it for this was our 21st year, generates a lot of attention, generates a lot of participation by everyone across the industry. But what isn't as well known is that we work very closely with the 50 state trucking associations. And in an attempt to get them to incentivize their membership to respond to the survey and people within their respective states to respond to the survey, we set up a sort of a friendly competition among the states. And for any state trucking association that is able to generate a minimum of 35 responses from within their state, we will do a state analysis. And I always find those state analyses so interesting because it really highlights the differences between what's happening in those states. And so we'll talk a little bit about New Jersey and Virginia. But one thing I want to let your listeners know is for very specific reasons, these state analyses do not include driver responses. And so people are saying, well, why not? Drivers matter. They do. But in our view, drivers have a much more global view on these issues. So I might be a driver who my home address is in Virginia, but I drive the lower 48. And so my perspective isn't focused on what's happening in Virginia necessarily. It's based on what's happening everywhere in the U.S. So and that's so critical, and we break out the driver top issues, and we break out owner operators and company drivers. But for these state-specific reports, it's everybody else. It's motor carriers, industry suppliers, law enforcement, government, anyone from the state who does the survey and indicates where their home base is. Then we go into these. And so this morning, 2 very different states. First of all, the state of Virginia. You see when you look at their top 10, they're very, for the most part, workforce focused. So number 1 among folks in Virginia, the driver shortage. Number 4, driver retention. Number 7, diesel technician shortage. So they've got concerns over sort of how do we fill the spots in the industry. But they've also got some other interesting concerns. One we don't see pop up very often on these state lists is the hours of service rules. But among respondents in Virginia, the hours of service rules come in at number 9. Very interesting. Also high on the Virginia list, truck parking coming in at number 5. And that, it makes sense because for carriers who are based in Virginia, you think about the big Northern Virginia area with federal government, state government. There's just a big complex there that doesn't necessarily lend itself to the availability of truck parking. So we see truck parking on theirs. Contrast that with New Jersey, and it is a whole different picture. The number 1 concern in New Jersey, independent contractor status. And we see that particular issue, the threats to allowing owner-operators and independent contractors work as they would like, crops up at the state level, and New Jersey is certainly one of those states where it crops up. So we see that as number one. And the number two concern in New Jersey, cargo theft. Again, an issue that we see in ATRI's research on cargo theft. We see New Jersey highlighted as a place where it's particularly problematic. You've got the Port of New York, New Jersey. There's just unfortunately, a lot of opportunity for the bad guys to be at work in New Jersey. And the only other one I wanted to point out on the New Jersey list is battery electric vehicles. Now, Dave, you'll recall when we talked about the overall top 10 list, battery electric vehicles dropped from number 6 last year to number 23 this year because of all that the Trump administration has done to roll back those mandates. But in certain states, New Jersey being one of them, this issue is still brewing and is still problematic. So it's fascinating to look at how individuals rank these issues in their states. And, quite frankly, I always say the top industry issues is one of my favorite things overall. But these state reports are really interesting to understand what's happening around the country and how that impacts the trucking industry in that state.
Very interesting. It's so funny, when we do the top 10, we've done it in 2 programs. We did the first program last week, and we always say, well, let's start with number 1 instead of doing Letterman style, because the bottom half are more interesting sometimes than the top half. This is more interesting than the whole thing, I think, because to see the differences in these states, you would think cargo theft isn't even on Virginia's list at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not, geographically, they're not that far apart.
Exactly. Right down the road.
Virginia has a port, just like New York and New Jersey, certainly not of the size, but it is interesting, how these issues impact predominantly carriers. I mean, there are certainly others, like I said, industry suppliers, law enforcement, government, but it is predominantly folks from motor carriers that are being calculated. Their votes are being calculated in these state reports.
That's one of the best.
So it is interesting to see those issues pop up.
I'm interrupting you because that is one of the best 10 minutes I've heard in radio in a long time. My dear friend, Rebecca Brewster, welcome to the Monday morning Nemo Nation family. At long last, you've been part of the family for a long time, but now you're in the inner circle.
Thank you, Rebecca. And by the way, this is why you get a full segment too, by the way, because it only sets up a lot of stuff to unpack. Thank you, Rebecca. Best of December.
Monday morning.